Should a criminal lawyer ever defend a client when the lawyer knows that the client is guilty?
As long as you don't categorically know, you can believe that they probably are.
Yeah.
But unless you have categorical proof that
Yeah.
they are 100% guilty, you're okay to defend them because you're doing your job, you're representing their interests. Once you know categorically that they're guilty, you're then misleading the court by pleading not guilty.
Yeah, I agree.
That becomes the issue.
And I think what we're all hinting at kind of is the division between a moral wanting to or an ethical, like more general principle. Because obviously, ethically speaking, as a lawyer, you are obliged to work and defend every client to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
And I mean, by not doing so, you're failing. You're guilty of professional misconduct.
Yeah.
But on a moral level, are we actually obliged to do it? That's a completely different story.
Yeah.
And I think that's something which, in a criminal sense, most people might be conflicted with, because you're forced to defend something which you don't really believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And that might be difficult.
Yeah. Would you ever consider that a lawyer who does morally disagree with something if they just refused outright? Do you ever think that do you think that they should be allowed to go with that moral belief if they completely refused to deal with this sort of person who they're dealing with?
I think you need to stress that there's an equal and equally demanding moral belief that every person deserves defense. We cannot let law or prosecution be a free-for-all. We cannot, just because somebody's done something wrong doesn't mean that they are,
They have a right to defend their right to representation.
Yeah, and they have exactly the right to get fair terms. Even the most despicable criminals have the right to have their say. There's nobody deserves to be badly gagged.
No matter what crime it is, you have the right to be presumed innocent until you're proven guilty.
Yeah, that's why it's innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Some people say that the primary role of a lawyer is to make money. Do you agree?
Ideally, anybody who works should be thinking about the wider context of their job and the wider context of what their actions will mean. But at the end of the day, everybody would like a pay rise and would like to be promoted and would like the prestige that goes with the high pay.
So are you okay then with lawyers being entirely selfish and just going for that monetary goal? Or would you say that there should be something there that guides their conduct as well?
There should be, but whether or not that actually trying to find some sort of
I think what
place in their job is something different.
I think it's also like, if you're gonna enjoy your job, you shouldn't just be looking at the money aspect. Like, lawyers do begin a profession simply to help others. So I think they should go with that in mind.
Yeah.
I think definitely the primary role should be the thought of helping others. The primary role should be making money.
All right.
That should be the bonus. That should be the extra to what you actually wanted to do is to help someone.
All right.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. I think it depends on what area of law you specialise in. For example, if you're a public lawyer, somebody dealing with asylum and immigration or criminal law, your role is the most noble sense of the word, to uphold the law, to develop society, to be the guardsman. However, if you're a corporate lawyer, if you're a lawyer primarily concerned with land law or commercial exchanges, in some sense, your job is to make as much money for your client and, secondly, for yourself as possible.
But in that case, we're talking about having a responsibility to your client, ethically speaking, and
You're helping
money-wise
that
speaking.
person.
You're not actually thinking about money for yourself. But
Well,
the argument would be that it depends on what stage in life you are, because most people, when they start out a law degree or start becoming lawyers, they might think that the whole public policy and public service is an important ideal. But the further you get into life, the more cynical you become, because you realize you can't help anyone. And then, money becomes a lot more important.
Yeah.
So it's,
Or potentially grow wiser and more philanthropic.
Or perhaps, I guess it's not about the money that when you say say that you specialize in. It's more like when you, what suits you more. Like for example, if you're going for a criminal lawyer, like it is known that you don't get much money unless you're extremely good at it. But if you're a corporate lawyer, you do get quite a lot. So it's also what suits you. It's not what the money drives you to go to. So
Yeah.
There's also the fact that the law is still referred to as a vocational profession. You go to because you feel you have a calling in that particular direction to be a lawyer, in much the same way that some people feel a calling to, for example, priesthood. So but I think that would tend to refer more to the sort of public sector work that Kevin was talking about.
Certainly.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. When cross-examining a witness for the other side, should a barrister be as tough as possible?
So it depends what you define tough as well, because a good barrister doesn't need to shout at a witness to get the right answer that they want out of them.
Yeah.
So if your barrister is particularly skilled, then you can probably be as tough as you want, but being tough doesn't necessarily mean shouting at them and badgering them.
Okay, so what about that sort of like
Absolutely.
instigative nature but towards children? Would they not be frightened or so many questions bombarding them? How do you think children would deal with this, or would they just say things just to purely get out of the situation of being bombarded with
I think if
questions?
you ask a particularly a child or any other vulnerable witness questions the right way, you can ask what would be labelled tough questions, but in a way that they can answer them
Mhm.
without being scared, by breaking the question down and asking simple questions.
Every witness is, you've really got to be attuned to your witness. It isn't legal skills so much as it is people skills, if you know what I mean. Some, you may have a really hardened witness who may well need, tough questioning in court, whereas if you're dealing with children or asylum seekers or particularly vulnerable people, it very rarely is the best way to go. I mean, the key was what you said, is professionalism, not difficulty.
And
It's
if
in order to get the job done.
And if you've got those right people skills, then you can use them to your advantage in a way where you can ask the right questions, you can say the right things in such an appropriate manner where you won't have manipulated the person in the slightest.